So I'm starting to rig up my exhaust today. I cut a slice out of the adapter piece right here, and I'm just about ready to pull the welder out, but I cut my 90-degree bend. I cut a chunk out of that, and I'm actually going to take a piece of the chunk I cut off, and it's going to fit up all nice like that, and I'm going to weld that chunk on and then mock it up on the adapter pipe on the turbo and start welding it to that. Hopefully get the stack nice and straight. It's not going to be perfect, but that's why I went with 3.5-inch pipe, because I can do things like this that may end up causing a little bit of a restriction in the exhaust, and it'll probably just end up making it a little quieter. I don't think it's going to really hurt the flow too bad, because we got plenty of flow compared to this stock garbage. I mean, that thing was like a maze. So hopefully next time you see this piece of pipe, it's going to be one piece of pipe. Alright, I've got this thing mocked up, getting ready to weld it. I just thought I'd show you guys. I used the other 90 that I'm not going to need, because I did do a nice cut on this one that should work out. But I just clamped that to the truck bed here. Got a pair of vice grips with my ground to keep it out of my way. I laid this flat and put a square against the front of it here while it was in position where I thought it would be alright, and I just put some marker marks on it. So I'm going to start welding this, and any place that doesn't fit good, I'm just going to tap it with a hammer a little bit, get it all nice and fit up. But a little bit of gap like that's not going to hurt. It'll actually burn in better with this little shitty welder here. So we'll see how it's working today. Alright, I got it all tacked up. Got the stack sitting on there. I don't know yet if I'll keep it that long or if I'm going to cut it down a little bit. Doesn't really matter, I guess. Probably depend on how it sounds. Probably be able to tell by the length if it needs to go down a little bit or not. I'm excited to see how this paint on the stack holds up from the heat, but time will tell. I've just got the bolts loosely fitted in here, so if anybody's out there like, oh, your stack's not straight, I know, but the bolts are loose and there's some wiggle room, so it's good enough for me. It's better than the old bent Nelson muffler, but it's looking alright. We got some gaps to fill in, but should be able to do it no problem. Alright, we got exhaust. And we got all of our intake and boost piping rigged up here. It was actually super simple. The exhaust turned out alright. My welds aren't great, but like I said, that welder kind of sucks. But we ended up with quite a transition here. I'm not too worried about it. I think it'll actually quiet the tractor down a little bit. A little bit of back pressure is always good. Thought I was going to have to cut the stack, but the height looks pretty freaking good. So we're going to run it. For the intake piping, I ended up, like I was mentioning in the last video, I just cut my original intake pipe, put my 90-degree rubber boot on here, put a 90-degree elbow, reused the original inlet off the intake manifold where the original intake pipe coupled up to the intake manifold, because it gave me just enough length to use this 90 and still have clearance on the back here. And on the boost side, I cut down my 90-degree boot a little bit, and as you can see, there's space between that and the valve cover, but I'm not too worried about it. We got plenty of space between the breather there, and we got plenty of space between the bottom of the fuel tank. And I thought I was gonna have to clamp this stuff to the tractor to fix it so it's not gonna move, but it's pretty sturdy. Yeah, I cut that much off of the 90, and yeah, it wasn't a clean cut, but oh well. Like I said, it's not a show tractor, and it's never gonna be. So we just came into our intake with a 90-degree rubber boot. We're pretty tight on the alternator bracket here, but I'm not worried about it. But everything looks good. There's plenty of room for the radiator hose, plenty of room for the alternator. Actually, it's going to be easier to get to the alternator since the original pipe ran right here. It'll actually be easier to get to the radiator hose too. I gotta fill this thing up with fluids, probably throw the top piece of the hood on, run my wiring, install the starter, put the battery on the charger, and I gotta get my gauges in the dash up here. I don't want to fire it up with the oil pressure line just hanging out like it is. So I'm gonna get back to work. Well, I'm calling it a day now, but it's starting to look like a tractor again, finally. Tomorrow I've just gotta fill it with antifreeze, fill it with motor oil, and bleed the injectors, make sure the oil pressure running to the turbo is correct. But I did end up installing, I didn't know where I was gonna put the auxiliary coolant filter, but it actually fit up in here real nice now that there's not an exhaust running through there and a big stupid steel pipe for the intake. I actually made quite a bit of real estate in there, but that's just tied in with T's here. And back here I've still got that off because when I fill these engines up with antifreeze, I like to open the top valve here and I fill it up till it starts to come out, close the valve, and then that's the feed side for the heater core up top, and obviously this would be the return. It goes into the water pump by the lower radiator hose. So I'm planning on filling the radiator all the way up, obviously shutting this valve off once antifreeze starts to come out, and then I'm going to blow some compressed air in until water comes out of that blue anodized fitting, so that I know that there's not a big air bubble in the heater core. So I've had trouble in the past with this thing getting a big old air bubble up in there. And I'm also going to be adding a coolant recovery tank right up in here, since I've got a nice big hole in the hood. So I'm going to cut out a nice piece of plate, leave a hole in the back to get to the cap on whatever I end up with. There's even mounting holes there already, so I'm going to mount something up in there so that I don't just have a vent tube off the radiator filler neck, because I don't like that tractors like this are perpetually low on antifreeze because they were too cheap, or whatever the reason was, that back in the 70s and all that, they didn't think that a overflow tank was necessary. Got the gauge pod mounted up. Everything looks good. I really just got the battery hooked up right now, but I've got that red wire hanging out there, which I've got to hook up to the key switch for positive with the key on. This white wire here, there's also a yellow wire somewhere up in there next to the white wire in there. That's for the illumination for the gauges. So when I get my light wiring all redone and ready to go back in, they're going to be tied into the headlight switch, so that when I turn the headlights on, all my gauges illuminate. And I did test the dash cluster when I had it out, and I found the right wire to power up the illumination lights in that. And our inner light here, as you can see, isn't going to do much pointing straight ahead anymore, but these are mounted on a nice like swivel bracket. There's a nut back there, I don't know if you can see or not, but I'm just going to turn each center one down and face toward the ground, like by the tire, because I'm mounting a big LED light bar up on the roof, up on top of the windshield there. I shouldn't say on the roof, it's going to be just above the windshield, so I can have it on steel and not drill into the fiberglass roof, because that thing's seen better days as it is. But I've got the LED light bar for the front I'm going to be putting in. It's a big curved one. On the back here, right in the middle on top of the rear window there, underneath the inlet for the cabin air filters, there's going to be a light bar there. Probably get rid of that work light that's there right now. These two rally lights are coming off the back, and there's going to be two LED work lights. Well, two of them are driving lights and two of them are work lights, but same freaking thing to me. But I'm going to put two LED lights on each rear fender, and according to the law, this red tail light's supposed to work, and it doesn't, so I'm going to get that wired up while I've got it, while I'm in the wiring. But Should have this thing running tomorrow. I'll put a video up as soon as I do. Got the stack mounted up, got my rain cap on there. Still haven't decided yet if I'm going to put some sort of brace going from the pipe here down to the frame. I don't really want to because it's going to be blocking the dipstick, and with this freaking AN line for the return, I'm already going to be tight on space, but guess we'll see what happens. But it's looking good. I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out. Just wish it wasn't taking so long, but I want to make sure I do everything right so it's worth the time and effort spent right here. So when cold starting, you're cold-blooded piece of shit, Ford 8700, always hit the button on the injection pump.